LegalTech Network is an ABA Tech Show, and I'm Dennis Kennedy with
Natalie Kelly,
Nicole Braddock,
and Adriana Linares.
And this is Tech Show Today. And we're back. I'm Dennis Kennedy with Natalie, Nicole, and Adriana. Adriana is my co-host on this.
Thanks for having me, Dennis.
We're going to talk about the phenomenon, which some people think is new, but obviously isn't, of women in legal tech.
Sure.
We have a stellar panel to talk about that. So, as part of the ABA Legal Technology Resource Center, we do an annual list of women of legal tech, which we've been doing 3 years. It's a great list. The new list will come out hopefully next week, I think. And we did a nomination process, and we learned that we had over twice as many nominees this year
awesome.
as in previous years. So we're excited about that, and we encourage people to look for that list when it comes out. So we want to talk about your experiences in technology. So maybe we can kind of go down the line and tell people what it is that you've done and what you do, and so they can get to know you.
You know, I got my start in legal technology at a law firm. So my first 6, 7, 8 years, I think, way back during Y2K. That's how far back this goes. I mean, I was a child prodigy and started when I was 15, but that's really, I went through the school of hard knocks, learning legal technology and what lawyers really need and use. And it was a really large law firm that I worked at in Florida. It had 9 offices at the time. I think it's even bigger now. And it was just great exposure to all the different disciplines and practices, and also regionally, and then all the different parts of running a practice inside of a large law firm. So I was lucky because I didn't know anything when I got hired, and I just learned a lot. Being in an IT department of a law firm is really a great way to go. And then eventually I went out on my own and have honestly just never had a problem finding work, because there's so much work to be had in legal technology. There's never a lawyer who doesn't need our help, and Natalie can definitely speak to this same point with her experience with the bar. So yeah, that's a little bit of how I got started and got rolling. And I'm not a lawyer. I think that's one of my proudest and sort of most important points that I always remind people of, is that the legal technology industry really provides a lot of opportunity and space for non-lawyers. And I like to just remind people that there's a lot of opportunity here. If you have ideas, fine if you're a woman, we want you, but if you're a guy too, I mean, there's just a lot of opportunity, and I've always been very grateful for that. Nicole, how'd you get in this biz?
So I practiced law. I was litigator for maybe 8 years. And during that time, I didn't know or care about technology.
Sounds right.
If Microsoft Word worked, and if my Outlook application worked, then I was happy. And if it didn't work, I would get grouchy. So I didn't pay much attention. But then I started a business. It's about 6 years into practicing law, where that sort of started to open my eyes about sort of the innovation universe generally. And
that's a good, sorry to interrupt you, but why did you why did you start a business? Right, what was the space that you saw that you thought, okay, well, I'm a practicing lawyer, I don't know much about technology, but what was the space that you saw?
So when I was practicing, I had a baby, and then I had another baby, and during that time I was seeing other friends of mine who were like these very accomplished women who had circuit court clerkships and went to Ivy League schools, and they were dropping out because they couldn't find the practice of law to be compatible with having a child.
Interesting.
Sure. So I saw this opportunity, and this was also, the timing was right, because it was also right after the economy went in the tank.
Sure.
And so law firms had stopped hiring, but they still needed people to fill in on the substantive legal work. I wasn't loving practicing law. I was a litigator, and I'm naturally a problem solver, and the fact that I had to constantly butt heads with opposing counsel every day just didn't suit my personality. So I saw this opportunity, and I started my first company when I was on maternity leave with my second kid, and I had a 1.5 years old at home and was still practicing law, which is not something I recommend any of you do. That's a very bad idea.
You should drink to that.
Yes,
I was going to say more bad ideas
Cheers,
on the way.
How was your coffee, by the way?
On that
Delicious,
front.
actually. I need a top off.
So I started this first company, which really launched me into a better understanding of the business of law, what is happening in the industry, what changes need to be made, and then I started learning about technology. So it wasn't until after I sort of made the plunge into the legal innovation world that I started to learn more about technology. And I'm now on my third company, and we just build legal technology, which I think, the one thing I would say is I now own a software development firm. And I have written 3 lines of code in my life, 2 of which are CSS, which my developers tell me does not count.
Hello World?
Yes.
Is that the other one?
Hello World. So I don't have any technology skills as far as developing and coding, but you don't need that to get into technology. What I do know is about creating products that people want to buy or want to use, and I know about good design and those kind of skills are extremely, extremely useful and much needed in legal technology because we have a lot of really bad products in legal tech that need a lot of improvement. And I think that's because we've really, as an industry, we have ignored design and user experience and user interface for so many years. I think we're starting to catch up and do a better job there. But so you don't need to be, I guess my message there is that you don't need to be a technologist to get into legal tech.
lawyer.
Or a lawyer.
What about you, Natalie?
It's true. Okay, so my path is a little bit different. I mean, I actually did code back in the day. In undergrad, I had to actually write in BASIC, believe it or not. Just a little requirement in the honors program at Spelman, but and that led me to different paths and different jobs where the tech side of what I was doing was. So if you wanted to do spreadsheets, Lotus 1, 2, 3, all of that good stuff, I was your girl. And so you kind of do those kinds of things. And then the legal came later. As I was in law school, kind of pairing those skills was where it was. And then I kind of grew into my position, and all of that was a great foundation for me to move into my job of actually looking at and helping lawyers select which technologies they're going to use. And so, from teaching, firms how to set up, how to run their practices, a very vital part of that was 75% of what I was doing was helping them train on technology. Certified in time slips, certified in all these practice management systems is kind of what my background was. And so that's kind of where I got my start in terms of me pairing those two together. I've actually come to TECHSHOW for 22 years.
Oh my gosh.
And so
Also a child prodigy.
Cheers.
Cheers to that.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
So, so technology is one of my first loves, and so I'm going to always be there. So, Women of Legal Tech is great, and I think the energy that we now see with all of what really is true coding, or the coding of the day, is important. And it's really great to be a part of this energy, this environment. But we have those challenges that we've been talking about before, that we do have to put a face to this thing. We have to recognize that there are opportunities where we can do more. Adriana, in your year as chair of TECHSHOW, when you were able to bring more women to the forefront in this is vitally important.
Yeah.
And we continue with this, with our list and the like. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about the list, and when Heidi Alexander started it, what was so exciting to me was people would tell me that they couldn't find women to speak at conferences. And I'm like, well, it takes you like 2 minutes to find people. I had a whole list of people. And so the traction that list got in creating opportunities for people, and I think you're an example of getting a great speaking opportunity off of being on the list. And so that was good. And so I think that's helped a lot. But we were talking, what's kind of interesting this year is that some people call it the year of women in legal technology, which seems weird because I've known you guys for so long. It's not like just this year. But there are some issues we were talking about ahead of time. The keynote speaker role, and then that phenomenon that people like to call manels these days.
That was hysterical the first time I heard that. Totally love manels. Panels. Panels full of men, for those of you who hadn't heard this funny term.
Yeah, so you had a comment about that, of just seeing something on a topic where it's just, I think it was AI you were saying.
So it was LegalTech this year is a conference that happens in New York, and it's like e-discovery crazy. But they got a lot of flack because there was a panel that represented the panel as the experts in AI and the law, and it was a panel of men. and immediately I think social media jumped on this. And I think the problem is that when you have a panel of men are saying these are the experts, you're saying this is what an expert in artificial intelligence looks like.
Yeah.
This is what, and that's sending a message to clients. That's sending a message to people who might want to work in this field. And it's a lot of these subtle things that still happen all the time that I think there's an opportunity cost for women. There's the issue of, if you're sitting on that panel and you're presenting your knowledge, you have an opportunity to create credibility for yourself, which creates opportunity. So you're losing that, but then I think there's also just sort of the creation of an image of this is what an expert looks like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And imagery is huge. I mean, if you take the Michelle Obama and the young girl looking up at her portrait right now, I mean, that's one thing. And in legal, we've had to kind of face these issues. So when you look at like corporate counsel situations, and you'll have a lot of that part of the legal starts to really measure, and there are implications about it. Having to be accountability for diversity in those spaces is big. And for us, I think we've known each other all this time, but to say, hey, we need to measure and make people accountable for this. We got to get rid of these manholes. We got to, whatever they're called. We got to get rid of these things, or we have to at least understand what the implications are having for. And it's
and
vitally
you're both
important.
right. It's image and really the message that you're sending when we set up manholes or manholes.
Manholes is
Or
what it's
when
called,
they
manholes.
when
I
they
don't know
do
what
too
they're
much
called.
man-speaking.
Mansplaining.
Mansplaining, that's what it is.
Yeah, there
so-
you are.
Yeah.
This is my one rule about women in legal tech was that I was just turning it over to the committee, all women, and no mansplaining from me. And if I ever did, they just needed to shut me off.
Maybe what we need to see happen, Dennis, is when, gentlemen such as yourself get asked to speak, maybe you should start, this could be the movement. All the men should start saying, I'm happy to do it if my co-presenter is a woman. Or you could say, well, I know that I'm qualified, thank you for this opportunity, but here's someone that I know who you should call instead.
Right. No.
I challenge you all.
No, that is a challenge, and that's something I've done that for a while, Adriana, which is why I recommend you a lot. And when people I can't do something, they ask for others,
Yeah.
I always give 3 women.
I mean, it's going to take all of us, the community, to keep the movement going, which I think is great and it's positive. And we hear the argument all the time that the legal industry has been mostly men. That's true, and that's changing too. And so I just think we're going through this really positive evolution right now. And it's exciting and it's fun.
I agree. And I mean, even if you look at there have been rules changes lately at the ABA level, even which is kind of fascinating, right? And where it may be born in racial diversity and gender diversity, I think that bleeds right into exactly what we're doing. What they're saying, if you're putting forth panels or group, you have to have this balancing, and why that may seem forced on one hand, I do think that it starts to address some of the concerns that we're starting to look at. So I don't think that can be overlooked. It's just a matter of let's seize upon all of this positive energy that's coming out of this and move forward with it.
And let's talk about mentoring, because I think that one of the things.
Don't you mean whoa mentoring, Dennis?
Yeah, good point. I didn't say mentoring, but
Sorry, it was too easy. It was
So-
just too easy.
so I know that one of the things we talk about at Women in Legal Tech is this notion that what people want, especially young women, is the mentors and the role models. And so, what do you find? Are people approaching you all, because you guys are great mentors? So.
My message isn't very different than what I said a few minutes ago, which was there's a lot of opportunity here, and you just have to find the space that needs filling and be an entrepreneur, which is really something, Nicole, when you were telling your story, I thought, well, then you just have this entrepreneurial spirit, right? And maybe not all of us do, but the point is, even if you don't feel like you can start a company, there are certainly there are 200 vendors in this hall, or 150, I don't even know, but there's well over 100 who are looking for smart, bright people. If you're a woman, I feel like today you've got an advantage, because that seems to be the big get these days. There's plenty of opportunity, and I say that all the time. And I think too, working with lawyers can be hard. So I feel that I have to exude a lot of tough love, and that can be hard. When I walk into a law firm, and it's a firm of 10 people, chances are 6 of them are going to be men. And I walk in, I'm this 100-pound little thing, you know, and I have to really put my foot down. And I don't mean that in a, you know, I just have to really show my power and I'm there for a reason. They called me. So obviously I'm the expert and I have to own that, or else a lot of that trust can get lost. So having confidence and finding a space or an opportunity or a thing that you really are passionate about that you can speak to with a lot of enthusiasm is going to be a good combination.
So I have a fabulous story.
Oh, good.
Okay, so the very first female chair of ABA TECHSHOW was Reba Nance.
Uh-huh.
And if you've ever spent some time with her, one of the things that she talked about was like how she got into that position. And it was actually taking the front row seat in one of the sessions. I'm sure it was a man-pole or man-all.
It's all right, Natalie, you'll get by the time we're done, you'll get this.
I'll get the man-all. I'm sure it was that. But it was taking that front seat, taking notes, and wanting to be present, wanting to do the work. And I think that gave her an opportunity to then work her way onto the planning board, work her way into the position of being chair of organizing this. And I think that kind of thing, to say that you show up, that
Right.
you're an expert, you're willing and ready to do the work,
Yeah.
all of those things, whether it's starting your own practice, starting your own firm, companies, those things you have to just be ready to do. And and we still have challenges, but I think the opportunities are there, and it's great.
Lots of opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that if you say, if I go to law school and I come out and I'm going to practice law in some firm and it looks terrible and the lifestyle seems terrible, it seems like now there's so many opportunities in law that could be better suited to what you could do, you know, male or female, but especially for women.
I see it myself as an employer in legal tech. I see myself as having an obligation. If the market won't provide women or people of color who have tech skills to come work for me, then I have to build it internally. So my goal in the next year is to be able to have like a 12-week apprenticeship program where people who come out of college can learn tech and learn this space, and then we can create our own internal, you know, pipeline of diverse employees, because the market is not doing it for me. And like on the mentorship point, every single move I made in education and my career have been because of women encouraging me. And I mean that very seriously. There have been so many important women in my life. There have been important men too, but the women have been the ones who have, like, on the days you're like, I can't do it, the women have been the ones to like grab you, like be like, yeah, you freaking can.
Yes.
And that's been really valuable. So I had a very important realization recently that I'm old.
Yeah.
And
I see your wheelchair parked over
it's
there. I'm
right,
glad you're not sitting in it.
I'm gonna.
Yeah. So, but in realizing that I'm old, there's this absolute liberation that comes with that too, which means I don't have to prove anything to anybody anymore, and I can help everybody else who's still trying to prove stuff. And so I'm really excited that I'm old, and I'm excited that like.
Okay, she's not actually old.
None of us are.
Well, for so long, I had to deal with not just being like the only woman in the room, but being the youngest.
Yeah.
And so I was always trying to like balance these, you know, how insane can I be? Because my natural personality is, you know,
Insane.
you know, or like how feminine can I be? How masculine do I have to be? What do I have to wear? I used to think about all those things because I had to. Now I don't give a crap, guys, and it's wonderful. But I understand that other women are still in that space, and I love when women reach out to me proactively to say, hey, Nicole, I see that you're building this tech company. Can you help me? Can you give me advice? I will always answer the phone. I love that opportunity.
I think two quick things, and that is, if there's a space, legal technology space, that allows you to be yourself, this is it. So if you're a woman or a young lady who has these struggles about what should I wear, what do I look like, just be yourself. Because this is one of those businesses that the most important thing that a lawyer is looking for is trustability. So if they can trust you, it doesn't matter what you look like or what you're wearing or who you are, just own your expertise. And the other thing I was just thinking too is there's an interesting nexus that's happening as the profession is doing this weird evolution, that's going to provide even more opportunities for us, and that is in that work-life balance that you mentioned earlier. It used to be 10 years ago, if we had this conversation, we were probably just talking about software, right? And now there is so much more, because we're starting to understand the implications, or not understand, but maybe work harder on getting lawyers and legal professionals to have work-life balance, to learn to meditate, to incorporate other parts of living and life that are really a lot of opportunity for women and men. And I think that's an important thing to realize too. Like, this thing is happening, and there's just so much.
The be yourself point really resonates with me too. And I just had an interview the other day where I was asked the question, what do you contribute your success to? And my number one answer is I didn't become successful until I felt comfortable letting it all hang out. Like, there is one Nicole. I mean, okay. I should also, I'll let the audience know that these cups are empty. So we've been fake drinking the whole time. Sorry, secret's out. Which is why I couldn't stop laughing in the beginning. My apologies to the viewers. Yes, but really, like, I didn't become successful until I stopped like having that lawyer veneer. Like
you can't even fake a cup of coffee.
But I used to wear suits, and I used to be very like buttoned up all the time, and like, which is really hard for you to imagine, I'm sure. But honestly, like, when I started on social media at these events, when I started just being myself, that's when clients really started to respond. That's when I started to get asked to speak a lot. That's when I started getting people interested in using my services.
Here we go again. I mean, I can do this all day.
But I do think that's pretty critical, and I think it's especially if you're in like a very male-dominated industry, it's hard to be feminine. It's hard to like let yourself be all the things that
well, sometimes
make up
you don't want
personality.
to be feminine, because then we get worried, like, oh, am I too feminine, and is that why this person is talking to me? So I just go back to be yourself.
Yeah, I think transcending labels is very, very important.
Yeah.
And understanding the implications behind that. And I think what's empowering is that you don't, not caring about those labels. And once you start to shed those, to show your genuineness, and you talk about success, even on the business side, that's what's most important. When you can be yourself and true to yourself, true to what your product or service might be, that's where you find the success. So it's vitally important to understand who you are.
Yeah, I say if diversity has its own value, which it clearly does, I think the more you actually are yourself, that your contribution to that diversity is so much greater.
Absolutely.
Hey, Randy, you want to ask a question to wrap it up, or?
I didn't hear you, Dennis.
Do you want to ask a question to wrap it up?
Yeah. I'd like to know what Nicole was drinking before she faked like there was never anything in it. Gosh, you sure threw that down quick. I think the last comment I'll make is just that same advice. If you see an opportunity, jump on it, be yourself, and really wrap your arms around this community. This is the most helpful and amazing and supportive group of people on both sides of the sex aisle that I just say all the time, I feel so lucky that I ended up in this weird place in legal technology, because we're all good friends. Everyone wants to help each other. I do a lot of work with some bar associations where it's different, right? There's competition, and maybe people are sort of not always lifting each other up. Inside here in legal technology, it is not like that.
I agree with that. I recently launched a new company, and the amount of emails and texts and direct
Support.
message on Twitter that was sent to me saying, "What can I do to help you?"
It's awesome.
It blew me away. Like, I think in a time where we all generally have a hard time having faith in humanity, it was so invigorating to have all these people who really care, and like even take that time to reach out to say, what can I do to help? And I do the same thing. I think that one of the most valuable things that we have when we succeed are connections. So I am always trying to help younger people who are coming up make those connections, talk to the right people, get them to the right space, because I think that's really a big value that we can give to the younger generations.
Yeah, I think
And
this is
Natalie,
all a good fight.
Defend the bar associations I just insulted. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's quite all right.
I just
I
grabbed
think what
any other
happens is
group.
it's just No, and I think, bar associations are definitely things to talk about for sure. And their faults aside, I do think that that's a great place where you have pockets of individuals who understand that, yeah, we need to have female bar presidents. We need to have, females leading committees. And we understand the value of diversity, that we understand how to deal with bias and labels and all of those things that lead to the success of the profession as a whole. And so while that's true that those are the challenges that are in front of us, it is exciting, it is important to understand that there are opportunities that we can find in all of this. So yeah.
This is great. So thank you. My challenge to people listening is these three people need to be doing keynotes. So people need to step up to that.
We'll work on it. We'll do that.
So this has been Tech Show today, and we'll see you later with another show.